Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 8 of Play-by-Play, the daily wrestling podcast. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. We've got a heck of a show for you today. We're going to be talking about all sorts, and to talk about all sorts with me is the main man himself, Mr. Arman Kirmani. How's it going, buddy?
I'm frozen after what we've just had to go through, but it was definitely worth it, as everyone can see from the photo, hopefully, that we're sharing right now on this Hangout.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll acknowledge that photograph in a minute, but let's start by thanking our wonderful partner before we start the show, eWrestling News. It's the only place to go on the internet if you want to find wrestling news. It's fantastic. It's an amalgamation. It's all about democracy. So if you like wrestling news and you want to hear about it or you want to contribute to it, eWrestling News is the place to go. And of course, you can find our podcast there as well.
And that's exactly why they are the best wrestling news website out there, because they picked us up. We are the best wrestling podcast out there.
There we go.
Keep sharing, keep interacting, send us your questions, and become the new Dean Douglas.
That's right. Dean Douglas Award holder. We'll be revealing that later as well. Now, on today's show, we've got a lot to talk about, but let's start by talking about this photograph that you can see right now. The big news coming out of WWE last night was that the venue that was scheduled to host SummerSlam 2015 is now going to be closed. The Izod Center in New Jersey, which had been lined up to host WrestleMania, SummerSlam, after a stint of 6 years at the Staples Center in California, in Hollywood, right? So that's not going to host it anymore because it's closing down. WWE is searching for a new venue, and we think that's the perfect opportunity to bring SummerSlam back to Wembley Stadium in 2015. We're going to be telling you exactly why we think that over the course of this podcast. It's not just for emotional reasons. It's not just because we live a stone's throw away from Wembley Stadium. It's because, well, there's loads of reasons why, and we're going to be talking to you all about that. Make sure you join the conversation, by the way. We're also going to be talking about Vince McMahon. Now, there's been a lot of talk about Vince McMahon of late. Should he retire? Should Vince McMahon retire? We're going to be talking about that a little bit later as well. And, of course, we're going to talk about The Undertaker. Will The Undertaker be at WrestleMania? Should The Undertaker be at WrestleMania? If so, what will he be doing? So all that to look forward to, plus the Dean Douglas Award and the match of the day. Let's start at the very top. Arman, do you think, I know that you think this, but why do you think SummerSlam should come to the UK this year?
Because of one childhood memory that stands out, which is SummerSlam 92, Bret the Hitman Hart versus British Bulldog, and that eruption that happened in the stadium. And that whole event was just the most special pay-per-view. And I have no idea why SummerSlam or one of the big four pay-per-views has not returned to London. I mean, well, I have one idea, which is all to do with the time difference and the pay-per-view buys. But they've had things like Insurrection, they've had One Night Only.
No Mercy.
No Mercy. What they really need to do is give us one of the big four. And as you can see, year on year, the Hall of Fame, WrestleMania, the Raw after WrestleMania, the British crowd are there. They're the most entertaining crowd, the most engaging crowd, and probably the most difficult crowd for WWE superstars as well.
Sometimes.
But at the same time, we make the show. We are the best fans in the world. We deserve it. And, even John Cena said it. We need to bring WrestleMania here. So before they bring WrestleMania, which they're going to eventually bring, we have to bring SummerSlam back to Wembley.
Absolutely. Now, you mentioned there that one of the major issues is the time difference. And a lot of people point out the fact that, it goes on the air about 7 or 8 American time in the evening on a Sunday evening. But my contention is, A, it's on a Sunday. So if it was on a Sunday afternoon, it's SummerSlam. It's not WrestleMania. It's SummerSlam. So if it was on a Sunday afternoon in America, I still think people would get together to watch it. The spectacle of having it at Wembley Stadium, the new Wembley Stadium, which opened in 2006, is one of the most breathtaking venues in the world to watch anything, never mind sports or concerts or anything like that. The time difference, I think, is negated also by the fact that we're now in the WWE Network era, so pay-per-view distributors wouldn't have too much of an issue, and if they did, I suspect WWE would have no problem sticking 2 fingers up at them, because at this point they don't really care about the pay-per-view distributors.
One finger, Stone Cold style.
One finger, Stone Cold style.
Listen, the other thing is, and you mentioned it there, WWE Network, it's on demand.
Yeah.
A lot of their viewership no longer needs to watch the event live, although the hardcore fans do watch it live, and they will watch it live. The truth of the matter is, a lot of people will watch it at their own convenience, so the time difference really doesn't make that much of a difference.
Absolutely, and it's not just the time difference. A lot of people point to the fact that the audience in the UK is one, as you pointed out, with some of the most loyal fans WWE has. We, I think, represent the second biggest market for WWE outside of North America. They delayed us on the network. We've had some shoddy second-rate pay-per-views over the years. But despite that, WWE fans in the UK have been so loyal and they're so vocal. They deserve to have a major pay-per-view happening in the UK. And we've got the venue. We've got Wembley Stadium. Imagine 95,000 fans could pack out Wembley Stadium.
We'll sell it out. We'll sell it out.
Most certainly would. In the height of the summer, I think it would be superb, and it would be a beautiful way to honor that memory. You know, it's been, how long has it been? I do the math. 13 years since. No, more than that. Sorry, 23 years. Yeah, my math is all bad. But 23 years since WWE held a major pay-per-view in the UK, and that was a phenomenal success. I know they talk about the logistics of moving TV equipment. There's no reason why they couldn't do Raw the following night at one of the venues in London as well. London has no shortage of venues. There's Wembley Stadium. There's always the O2 where they frequently tape Raw anyway. So London's got everything going for it. Wembley Stadium is an iconic venue. The British fans are so loyal. All that, and it's a center. Wembley is a center for Europe as well. So all those European fans could come down and access this huge event.
The other thing is, me and you never agree on anything, and this is a special opportunity for all our listeners to understand that we are actually in agreement over one thing. And therefore, I'd like to appeal to everybody to get out there on your Twitter. This is the perfect opportunity. They've just lost their stadium and arena for SummerSlam.
This year.
They've lost it for this year. This is the time. Get behind us. Get behind this campaign. Tweet about it. Facebook it. Call up Vince. Write a letter. Do what it takes. Tell us what to do. We'll help you. We'll back you. We'll mention you. We'll do whatever it takes. This is a campaign that we've got to push. And look, if we push for this year, hopefully we'll get it. If we don't get it, we might get it next year. But we've got to get this momentum going. We've got to show the company that the UK audience is ready, and we deserve to have a big pay-per-view.
Absolutely. And as you said, there's so many iconic moments from that 92 pay-per-view. And I just think, you know, they've got plenty of time to build to it as well. This year is the best opportunity for UK fans to make it happen. But we've got to make it happen. They're not just going to present it to us. You've got to tweet Vince. You've got to tweet pictures. You've got to take pictures outside Wembley Stadium. As we've done, as if you're watching this on YouTube, you can see that we've taken a picture outside Wembley Stadium with a placard. Can
I tell you, it was very cold.
It was freezing.
And can I also tell you, that was just before we recorded this podcast, as in 10 minutes ago. And can I also tell you that as cold as it was, I came and I wanted to get a glass of water just before I did my podcast to clear my throat, and Arthur decides to give me the coldest glass of water I've ever had. So you know what? I have really made some sacrifices for this campaign, and I really appreciate it. People got behind us tonight.
You needed a SummerSlam to warm you up.
Well,
that's what I need. That's what you need.
need.
I think we could all agree with it as well. And I can't stress this enough. The visual factor of it. I mean, any event that happens at Wembley Stadium feels like a big deal, and there's no better way to elevate SummerSlam. They had it at the Staples Center. They had that whole Hollywood thing going on. Fine, I understand that. That was cool. But since you're going to move away from that, you can go to the IZOD Center where you do pay-per-views anyway. Or why not mix it up? Why not bring it to the UK? It'd be a risk, but Vince is a risk taker, and there's a huge reward there. The risk-reward ratio there is spectacular. But anyway, this is the thing. We'd like to see SummerSlam back in the UK. And as Arman mentioned, we'd like you to make sure you chime in on this on social networks. Tweet us at PlayByPlay123 with your thoughts, and go out there. If you're a UK wrestling fan, get to Wembley Stadium, take a picture outside it, tweet it to Bad News Barrett, to Paige, to Vince, to all the British superstars, all the decision makers in WWE, because I genuinely think this time we've got an opportunity to make an impact.
That is a really important point. The fact that the WWE is now using so many good up-and-coming British superstars is another reason, just like when the Bulldog was over, is to bring them here so we can show how much we love Paige. And trust me, I love Paige. If you've seen the new SmackDown promo, to show that she's done a phenomenal job in it.
Yeah.
She's one of the best up-and-coming divas. I'm telling you, I love Paige.
And she's
not
also,
as much as Lana, but Paige is coming up.
Yeah, and she's featured in Total Divas as well.
Oh, hell yeah. But the other thing is, as you said, I've got some bad news for you. And we've also got, the up-and-coming NXT guys as well. So
Adrian Neville.
Adrian Neville is there. So, we really want to get behind these guys. We want to see our people in a big pay-per-view main event, one of the big four. Don't give me any special No Mercy, Insurrection, no any of these one night only. I want SummerSlam. That's what I want now.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. I think the American fans as well would really appreciate it. Visually, it would just be something so different. The atmosphere would be incredible. Can you imagine 95,000 fans in unison screaming, "I've got some bad news." I mean, it would be incredible, and it would be so unique. And I think WWE would win a lot of favor. There's so much mainstream press in the UK as well that they could take advantage of. So many PR opportunities. So that's going to be great, and we really hope that SummerSlam. I mean, this is a great chance. I really, really hope that they consider this at least. There might be logistical issues, but there's so many ways around that. And WWE has been so smart in the past. So we really hope that's going to happen. SummerSlam. Let's bring SummerSlam back to Wembley Stadium in 2015. Join that campaign. Make it work, people. Right. Other things we wanted to talk about today are, of course, Vince McMahon. Now, there's been a lot of criticism, a lot of it from us as well, I have to say, of the way Raw has been booked of late, of the way SmackDown has been booked of late. But we very rarely critique NXT, and that's because the NXT product is unanimously almost agreed upon as the best product coming out of WWE at the moment. It works. It's logical.
Well, you like Total Divas.
I also like Total Divas, absolutely.
Now you
technically, that comes out of E.
Hang on, you got to tell the listeners
Yeah.
what you prefer, NXT or Total Divas, and don't lie.
Well, it's apples.
I know your wife's going to listen to this.
It's apples and oranges, man. They're two different things. But the point is, like, Total Divas is a product of E Entertainment, not WWE. It features WWE stars. But the point is, NXT is the most kind of critically acclaimed product coming out of WWE at the moment, and that's controlled by Triple H, not Vince McMahon. So that's Triple H's playground. Is his way of demonstrating that he can one day take over the reins of the company, and he's doing a very admirable job at the moment. So the question posed here is, should Vince McMahon retire? What do you think?
Hell no. Vince is still one of the most charismatic on-screen performers. I think the WWE has really suffered without him as the authority figure if they were going to have one. I know not a big fan is. Two, I just don't think he appears enough on television, and I think that instead of getting all these legends, as we said, to come and put over new talent, Vince was the perfect heel, was the perfect on-screen character to put over a lot and create new factions. And yeah, this was something that came up in our discussion online. That we need maybe the era of factions to return again. We don't have too many at the moment. He's been part of the corporation. He's been part of various other sort of alliances over the years, and as a leader, not only for the company but as a leader on screen, Vince is second to almost. I would say he was as big a part as an on-screen character of the Attitude Era as anybody was in those years.
Absolutely, but the crucial thing, the word you're using there is was, right? Because he was iconic. He's incredible. He's very, just as a symbol, he's significant. He defeated WCW. He took down Ted Turner, billionaire Ted, took down a whole corporation, and that's an admirable achievement. But those who caught his recent comments on the Stone Cold Steve Austin podcast were alarmed by some of the things he was saying. He was talking about Cesaro. He didn't realize, he kind of implied he didn't know how to book him, or he couldn't get over because he was Swiss, which I think is, that's a questionable comment. And then he talked about all these new stars, the millennials, as if they weren't trying to get themselves over, yet they're put in a situation where it's difficult for them to challenge the decisions that management makes for them.
Well, I think you've got to understand, I think Vince is playing a few games here. And it wouldn't be the first time that he is. He's a very smart man. One of the best businessmen in the country's ever seen, the world has ever seen, and the product has been his baby. I wouldn't go against him. I don't think it's all over. In fact, I think the bigger problem is that he doesn't do enough of the writing, because yes, he has to authorize it, but the fact that we have to go down and have these teams and they get these, sitcom writers to come in and do guest stars, and then you used to have a head writer of a SmackDown and a head writer. This is where it's all going wrong. What you need is to give the performers themselves the freedom, the spontaneity, the emotion to go out there, have some brief text and outline of what they need to say, and let them go. And that's how we buy into these characters. These scripts are the problem. It's not Vince. The reason the product is failing is not because Vince isn't there. It's because Vince has to now have a structure in place because the company has gone public, so that we can have responsibility somewhere. And with the 3-hour show, it's getting diluted. It's not Vince, and he doesn't need to leave, but it's the current structure. And I agree that maybe that's what needs to be fixed behind the scenes.
Do you think he needs to scale down his role at least? Because, I mean, you talk about Vince needing to do more writing, but he wrote those atrocious Roman Reigns. So this is the thing. It came out, the news broke that the Roman Reigns promos that we criticized to death, and they deserve to be criticized to death because they were that dire, were written especially by Vince McMahon.
Well, let me tell you something. I explained that in a previous podcast, and I do agree that, Roman Reigns is not hitting with his promos at the moment. But listen, it's up to the performer himself to get himself over. Let me give you an example.
How's he going to get a nursery rhyme over?
Well, how did Bad News Barrett get? I've got some bad news for you.
That's kind of cool.
How did Michael Cole get, and that general manager and the laptop thing over? It gets over or gets heat, right? Depending on if you're a heel or your thing. So it wouldn't be the first time a bad gimmick gets over. It's not the first time a bad promo gets over. But yes, the bad writing does play a part, and I'm the first one to criticize the writers, as I've just done. But I think you can't just put the blame solely on Vince. This is the guy that's given you the Hogan era, WrestleMania, Attitude Era, New Generation, even the PG success with John Cena as the leader. How can you now forget all of his history and record, plus his on-screen character and the things he brings to the product, and suddenly say there's nobody to replace him? Triple H is an on-screen character who's now filtering in. You can't just give $1 billion company over to a guy that's cut his hair and puts a suit on 2.5 years after he's booked himself in every main event angle. Look, we cannot have Triple H in charge of the company. His record as a booker is not proven enough, and that's just the creative side.
But something has to change, because the things are on a downward slope at the moment. Sure, we're going into Mania season, so things might start picking up, but ratings have been on a downward spiral. The network hasn't performed as well as they wanted it to. The pay-per-view buy rates comparatively are down. Well, they're down obviously because of the network era, but even the proportion of it is lower as well. The product is getting criticized left, right, and center. As I say, the only thing not drawing any criticism at the moment is NXT and the way that's been running. So if Triple H has demonstrated success with NXT, why should he not be given a chance to run the big show? I'm with you. I don't think Vince should retire, but I certainly think that he needs to evaluate some of the things that he's taking a hands-on approach to and just reposition himself a little bit. I don't think him as he's operating at the moment, I don't think he's at his most efficient. I don't know how much his hands are tied, but I do know that what's in his control is the product he's putting out, and that's Monday Night Raw.
But see, this is what I think you're getting wrong. I think he has restructured. He has taken less of a say, and that's why the product is suffering. I actually think he needs to come in and be more time on screen while he's still got his fitness and his health. And I think he needs to come out and be a bit more transparent with the storylines that he himself is responsible for, because I'm sure you'll find that storylines that he's booking have got more credibility and more mileage than some of these writers that they're coming out with at the moment. But look, we don't know the answer to that, because we don't know exactly what's going on. So that's sort of an endless debate. But the point I'm trying to make is I think Vince has still got a lot of time left. I've got a lot of time for him, especially because, look, I know you're presenting the situation as a lot of doom and gloom, but I don't think it is. Look, I've gone through years since in the PG era where we've had really bad years. Right now, we've got a talented roster. We've got lots and lots of really good up-and-coming talent that we're actually starting to buy into. We can see potential. We're seeing them going places. Yes, we're disappointed that they haven't got there and they haven't climbed the ladder and taken Cena off his pedestal at the moment. Yes, I understand that. But that's just how good Cena is. That's also the fact that there's a lot of mismanagement at the moment that isn't allowing these guys to prosper. So, we need to fix it, but we don't need to change the leader. It's not doom and gloom. The business is cyclical. It has its ups. It has its downs. It's going to recover. And, we're just one angle. Look, WrestleMania last year was the best WrestleMania in many years.
A lot of people would say that's in spite of WWE's booking. Daniel Bryan did an interview recently. I forget who it was with, but he did an interview recently where he acknowledged that the plan was never for him to be in the main event of WrestleMania. He was supposed to have a 6 to 10 minute match with Sheamus, which was going to be 4th on the card. That's what the plan for Daniel Bryan was. But the fans overruled WWE, and they did it so emphatically. WWE had no choice but to acknowledge the fans' wishes and desires, and they did, and hence it became a very successful WrestleMania. But the plan was for Batista to go over, and Daniel Bryan confirmed this. So it certainly wasn't the plan of the company. That WrestleMania 30, the success of it, happened to WWE by accident. I'm going to go ahead and say that.
No, I don't agree with you. I think that's assuming that WrestleMania 30 success only lies on Daniel Bryan's storyline and his booking. It was a large part of WrestleMania 30, but Taker Street was a big part of it as well.
I don't know, but the build-up was never there for that match.
The opening, when they had the Hogan entrance, when they had The Rock come in, when they had Austin, that set the scene. The entire spectacle, the Hall of Fame was amazing. Look, Daniel Bryan was a very big part of it, but I wouldn't want to overstate his play in WrestleMania 30 because, look, we've had some really good wrestlers over the last 10 years. And, I don't think any of the Manias since probably WrestleMania 18 for me has been as good as WrestleMania 30.
No, I agree with you. I agree with you. But
week.
as you say, it wasn't a large part of it was Daniel Bryan. He was in 2 matches on the card. The shock factor of the streak certainly plays in afterwards. But the build up to Brock Lesnar versus The Undertaker was diabolical, considering there was so much heat on him, genuine heat. I remember when The Undertaker turned up to that UFC event where Brock was fighting, and they did that kind of fake angle in the back. And this was supposed to be the payoff to that. They didn't pounce on it at all. It didn't ever look like Brock was going to win. They never really made it look like it was a threat. So much so that there was shock. There was genuine shock from everyone, industry insiders, wrestlers backstage. I think maybe a handful of people knew Undertaker was gonna do the favors.
Well, I think that really brings us on to the next thing that we were going to talk about.
Yes.
Which is, you know, the Undertaker and what the future holds for him, and whether or not he's finally finished, I suppose, as a superstar, as a performer, in-ring performer. Is there still a future for him? I mean, you know, you asked me all the questions. Today I'm going to ask you, do you think WrestleMania 31 will feature The Undertaker as a performer in-ring?
I don't think it will, and I don't think it should, to be honest with you. I don't think there's anything left to be gained from bringing The Undertaker back, certainly on the back of the way he was booked last year.
So The Undertaker is finally resting in peace?
I think he'll eventually... as we suggested, I think yesterday or the day before, I'd like to see The Undertaker come back for the Hall of Fame and maybe do a one-off match with an iconic superstar. That was billed as his retirement match. But I don't want to see him against a Bray Wyatt, because that's a lose-lose. If Bray Wyatt does the favors, he looks weaker than Brock Lesnar, which the WWE doesn't need right now. If The Undertaker, if Bray Wyatt wins, it just doesn't make any sense. 21-2, it doesn't have that appeal. I don't like the idea of The Undertaker coming back to wrestle a match. Do I like the idea of him maybe making a guest appearance? Sure, that would be fun. You know, if The Undertaker did not a run-in, but like just an appearance.
Dream match? Sting?
With next year in Texas, if Sting was a heel. That's the only way I'd accept it. It would have to be against one of the strongest heels in the company. It would have to be in Texas, which is The Undertaker's home state. And it would have to be next year. Not this year. This year is going to be an Undertaker-less WrestleMania. It's also a challenge for WWE as well to see if they can survive without The Undertaker, in the sense that they're obviously going to survive, but how do they build WrestleMania, which in recent years at least has been built so heavily around the streak? I mean, I think if they had a super match to build to, which they do in potentially with a Daniel Bryan Brock Lesnar match, would be nothing short of a super match in terms of build up.
Oh, I don't want to see that.
You're the only one. You're literally the only one.
No, albeit if I'm the only one, I'm sure I'm not. I don't want to see that big match, because I don't want to see Daniel Bryan beating Brock, which basically means Daniel Bryan is good enough to beat Taker's streak as well, in theory. That's the story.
There's no reason why, but the whole story of wrestling is you have to be good at wrestling. And Daniel Bryan talked about the style of match. He saw in that interview where he talked about Vince. He also talked about the style.
Just because he can get a stadium to chant yes, which is a gimmick.
It's not that simple. Not as simple as that.
It does not mean that this guy should be able to suddenly overcome a streak.
You've got to stop right there. You cannot understate the appeal of Daniel Bryan. It's not as simple as a chant. Okay, this is a guy that was properly buried for 6 months in a row by WWE, but the fans wouldn't take it. He had a special connection with the fans. He still does. He was off TV. He came on Raw. His segment with Kane was the hottest thing on the whole 3-hour Raw, easily.
Well, I agree that Raw isn't booked very well, and he was one of the highlights of the recent Raw.
It was the highlight.
Okay, I'll even accept that. But what I will say is I don't necessarily think that I want him to defeat Brock. I don't buy into that story. It certainly hasn't had a good build-up. It should be a very long build-up if he is going to do that, especially since Brock has been built up over the entire year. So it's going to be rushed. I don't want to see it. But anyways, the point I'm trying to make is, like, coming back to Taker, because that's where my focus is right now for this podcast.
There you go.
I want Taker to come back. And let me explain why. He's done the job. It's finished. The streak storyline is over. I want a normal Mania with a normal Undertaker. None of this streak. I want a good match. I want a supernatural character to play his supernatural character, bring it into the storyline. I want him to use that in the match, in the psychology, and I want to see somebody trying to overcome it. So I would like to see, and here's my big shout for this week, I want to see Bray Wyatt versus Undertaker.
You do want to see that match?
I want to see Bray Wyatt.
Okay, so tell me what happens in the scenario where the Undertaker beats Bray Wyatt.
Well, I just want to see a good match, and if we can get a good match, like let me explain something for you, right? Let me explain something to you. Edge, he fought Undertaker, right? He was hot. He was hot. He was up and coming. Well, CM Punk again. He was probably
one of the hot stars,
right? So just because you lose to Taker does not mean that you've been buried. When you lose to Taker, it's an honor. right? Let me explain.
But no, that was different.
One second, let me
It
explain.
was on an
Batista,
event.
Batista, another.
Then
Michaels, Triple H. These guys are legends. Michaels and Triple H. I'm not even giving you these up and coming stuff.
Yeah.
I'm giving you these legends, right? Even their careers have been highlighted by the fact that they performed and lost in the match with Taker. So what I'm saying is,
let me just interject one point. That was all pre-streak.
Right, but listen, if Taker goes on to wrestle once a year for the next 3 WrestleManias, even if he can put over good talent, even by, because what I'm saying is he can put over talent by performing with them, not necessarily needing to beat them. At the end of the day, his record might end up being 26-1 or 27-1. It's irrelevant. The record is finished. The streak line is finished.
Yeah.
But the match quality, don't forget, the Undertaker is bigger than the streak. The streak is somehow marketed to be bigger than Taker. Taker is a phenomenal performer, a phenomenal professional, and has a phenomenal ability to make some, despite the fact that he's going to tombstone them and pin them for the 1, 2, 3.
Okay, what about factors like his health, which everybody knows about? Everybody knows the Undertaker's been around for like 25 years, and it's not. I don't think it's. And you're all about realism, right? I don't think it's realistic to expect the Undertaker to beat one of these up and coming stars. And if he does, it certainly makes that star look weak, especially in comparison to Brock Lesnar, who's going to be leading soon.
Right. His gimmick is that of the dead man, so he can never die. I think that can be played into his age. The second thing I would say is there's many wrestlers older than him that have taken many bumps just like him that have continued to wrestle. It's not about his in-ring move set. It's about the storytelling, and you can do that with the supernatural character.
He was battered. He was so badly battered at WrestleMania, and Brock didn't botch anything. Let's be clear about it. It's not that Brock potatoed him or gave him the wrong move. He just, the Undertaker was so badly beat up physically, he had to go straight to the hospital. And it speaks to the volume of his value to the company that Vince McMahon left WrestleMania to ride in the ambulance with The Undertaker. He skipped the main event of WrestleMania to ride with The Undertaker, which tells you what he means to the company. But I don't think it serves any purpose to his health. I don't think there's any real story or any real value or any good rub he could give to a wrestler at this point in his career. If he came back next year, enough time will have passed that aura of The Undertaker, that special attraction of The Undertaker, is my contention.
Well, that's fine, and I take that point. But I'm not necessarily disputing when I want him back.
Yeah.
But I would, if I want him back next year, I definitely want to see him back this year as well. There's no logical reason why I'd want to wait a year to see Taker. If it's got to do with his health, if it's got to do with his injuries, then let the doctors decide. And we're never going to know the extent of that. Some of this is built up behind the scenes. There's a lot of misinformation. We can make all the assumptions that we want, but the only person that knows if he's fit enough to physically compete at WrestleMania at the grandest stage of them all is Taker himself. And I really hope he makes that decision, because I want to see him perform at every Mania while he's able to.
Well, we shall see. We shall most certainly see that. May or may not come about. Don't forget, guys, you can tweet us your opinion. Would you like to see The Undertaker at WrestleMania? Should Vince McMahon retire and bring SummerSlam to the UK? All these things you can discuss media. You can at PlayByPlay123. You can email us questions at playbyplay123.co.uk, and of course you can post on our Facebook page, which is PlayByPlay Wrestling. Shout out right now to Media Spotlight UK, who've already jumped on the hashtag Summer. So thank you very much for that, Joel. He's already done it.
That's what we want. Yeah. SummerSlam to Wembley.
SummerSlam to Wembley. Yeah, that's it. SummerSlam to Wembley. Let's make it happen, guys. And also shout out to yesterday's winner of the Dean Douglas Award. It's a 3P. He's done it. He's done a 3P 3 times. Mr. Glenn Abbott. Is there nothing you don't know about wrestling? Yeah, so he correctly got the answer to yesterday's Dean of the Day question, which I asked, which only once in WWE history have 2 superstars, 2 wrestlers, held the WWE Intercontinental Championship, and the answer, China and Chris Jericho.
What about Razor Ramon and Shawn Michaels?
Well, that wasn't officially recognized. So Shawn Michaels was stripped of the title, and it was given to, was contended that he was the champion, and he held onto the belt.
Well, I want to dispute this a little bit, because at WrestleMania 10 in the ladder match,
they had 2 belts.
They had 2 belts hanging.
Absolutely.
And Razor took down 2 belts.
Yes.
So technically speaking,
if you look at the history,
I'm sorry.
No.
I want a tiebreaker between me and Mr. Rabbit,
right,
because I'm still Dean of the Day.
No. This is the thing. Okay, so this is where you're wrong. the reason they did a tournament to do the title is because Shawn Michaels was suspended. If you look at the history of the Intercontinental Championship as it's listed chronologically on WWE's websites and publications and books and etc., they don't recognize that reign of Shawn Michaels.
But my memory recognizes it.
Oh,
and you
okay.
know what?
Well,
don't give me WWE marketing gimmick.
No,
the truth
well,
is,
if anybody
Glenn,
accepts that, you do.
hold on. The truth is, Glenn, you should have pointed out both answers, technicality or no, and so therefore I need a tiebreaker.
There's no tiebreak. You can pose your own Dean of the Day today. After you do that, give your Dean Douglas Award question of the day, and I'm going to give everybody the match of the day, and then we're going to sign off.
Okay, so who entered 25th in the 1998 Royal Rumble?
Jeez, you're going to make people sit through the whole Rumble.
I want to make sure people either watch the Rumble or I want somebody who's a real fan. None of these people that are going on Wikipedia, hey, Mr. Rabbit, to go and check out my answers. Number 20, who is the 25th entrant in the 1998 Royal Rumble? That's my question. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Rest in peace.
Okay, fair enough. Well, okay, I'm going to give you guys my match of the day, and I gave you one from SummerSlam. Sorry, in fact, I think we did that the wrong way around. You No, so it is my match of the day, right? Yes. Yeah, a couple of days ago, I gave you guys the match of the day, which was the Ultimate Warrior and Macho Man Randy Savage from SummerSlam '92. And since we're talking about SummerSlam and we're trying to keep SummerSlam going, I'm going to recommend another match from SummerSlam to you. This time it's from SummerSlam 2009, sorry, I beg your pardon. The main event of which was CM Punk versus Jeff Hardy for the World Heavyweight Championship. And I believe it was a ladder match as well. Extraordinary match, fantastic. It was really both wrestlers at their physical peaks. Jeff Hardy especially working so hard to put over CM Punk. So I recommend that. CM Punk versus Jeff Hardy, SummerSlam 2009. It was a phenomenal event, and it was a fantastic main event as well. So that's the match of the day for today, guys and girls. Thank you so much for tuning in. This has been episode 8. I can't believe it. Well, 8 episodes through of Play-by-Play, the daily wrestling podcast. Do you have anything to say before we sign off, Rahman?
Rusev for the Rumble.
Oh, wow. Rusev for the Rumble, indeed. And I shall add to that, SummerSlam to Wembley.